Hi, it's exciting to be back after having a little break, and we've got an exciting model to show you too. We are going to be painting Thomas Shelby from the fabulous Peaky Blinders. I am so looking forward to the film. He's looking rather dapper and very stylish in this model, and I just hope that we can do him justice and we can reflect that. Before I lose myself in all this excitement, I just want to say that we've started to put our paints that we've used on screen. So as I pull the paint in, you will see that the paint pot comes up on the screen. So hopefully things will be a little bit more clearer, so you can follow along or you can kind of get a gist of the paints that we're using. So we've started this model. It's prepared, primed and zenitholed, which reminds me, would you like to see how we get our models ready for painting? So, you know, would you like to see a video on priming, zenithols? Let me know in the comments. So that's enough chitter chatter, let's talk about this base. So at the moment you can see we're just throwing down some block colours using a brush, and now we're going to just go over using the airbrush. I'm using a grey here just to try and uniform the cobbles and make them a little bit not as stark. So my husband said to me about thinking about the cobbles and creating a story, and I thought that was fantastic because it's true what he said. We need to think about what's been over those cobbles, what dirt has been laid down. You know, we're thinking about the time frame. They didn't have cars, but they had horses going over them. They had carts. There was a couple of cars knocking about. But it's just that grime that we're trying to show. So yes, we've used greens, yes we're going to use browns, but here I'm using a Griff Charger grey, which is a bluey grey, and it was actually quite a nice colour to pull out, and it's a little bit different than just your greys and your browns, and I think it was just a nice colour to add a different layer to the road. So here we're just using brassy brass for our bullets. Where did they come up with these names? We've got another one that we use later called Tinny Tin. But yeah, so brassy brass we're just going over the bullets with. And the final bullet that's in the middle of the pond we don't do. We do that at the very end, just because we're going to try and do something a bit different with this little puddle. So we're going to be using Puddles, the Diorama Effect acrylic paint. We've used this before on a different model, and it turned out really nice. You can layer it and make the puddle as thick as you like, really. We only used a very thin layer on this puddle. But in the two little tins that you can see, I've got on the left, I've got khaki, and then on the right we've got puddle, and I am initially just using the khaki, and I'm just tipping the end of this little splash because that's where it would be the lightest. So, and I'm just building it up because I don't want it to be really thick. I'm also then dipping my brush in the puddle and going back to the paint and mixing them, creating these little ripples first of all. And then I'm going to concentrate using the puddle to just go over and create that wet look, and it dries and it looks as if it's still wet, but it's really good. And then finally that last bullet that's been dropped into that puddle. So back to the brassy brass, and I think it turned out really well. So onto his shoes. So I've zenithaled the model, don't forget. So these look really dusty and white, and all I'm using is a primer, is a gloss primer. I'm not putting a thick coat on because I want to see the zenithal underneath. And then we're going to do some dry brushing in a minute. So before we go on to dry brushing, we're just doing his laces. Now I got really engrossed in this, and you can't really see the difference, but I mixed up a grey black to do his laces, and then I went in just to get really over the top with this metallic paint, just to do the eyelets really, and that's the tinny tin that I was talking about earlier. So can you see it? No. Do I feel better for doing it? Yes. So all is right with the world in my eyes. And then finally, the dry brushing. This is all about just making his shoes look a little bit worn, scuffing them up using a coal grey. And I didn't want to go too over the top with this, because he's quite a tidy, smart, as I said, stylish guy really. So a little bit of wear is all good, a little bit of dirt. I introduce a brown in a minute, just to make them look a bit worn. And this is what the feet looked like on the base. So for his suit, I used a blue-grey, and this is going to be the colour of his trousers, his hat, his waistcoat and his coat. And I'm spraying it all over. I'm not missing anywhere, it's getting it all. So I'm just moving on to his coat here, so you can see me doing his outer coat, or no, his undercoat, I don't know, his coat, and then the waistcoat, and then you'll see me doing his hat. I'm then gonna use a lighter grey, and that's gonna be all the highlights, and you'll see me turn the model, which means that the spray will only get the high parts of the model as you look down. And I'm going to do the same thing for the waistcoat. I'm not going to highlight the hat. We're going to leave that a darker colour, so it kind of matches, but it's not a matching hat. And then with the same grey blue and a black, a little bit of a mix, so it's a little bit darker, we're going to turn the model back and we're going to spray up. So we're spraying all the shadowed areas, and then you'll get that contrast of light and dark, and it looks really good on his trousers because you can really see it. And we'll do the same thing for his trousers, his coat, waistcoat, and we'll do his hat this time as well. So moving on to his gun, I really got into doing this. Spraying's really good, I enjoyed it, but it's the fine detail, I think. I use a wet palette in a minute, and I could have gone into a right load of detail for hours, you know, weathering it, putting some tarnish, tinny tin again on there. Yeah, I was quite happy doing this for ages. Proper kept me quiet. So just thinking about weathering up the gun, and I'm just using a sponge, and I find a natural sponge is that I've ripped up is better, just because the holes they're not a regular size, you know, like a dish scrubber, that's a uniform size, whereas this natural sponge, it's got big holes, it's got little holes, so you get a really uneven, natural looking, unpatterned finish. And then just using the tinny tin again, really watered down, just in areas of the gun, just to give it again some wear. And then I've just moved on to using black gloss, quite thick, just to give his gloves a really shiny, leathery, new leather look. Gotta love a bit of weathering, using pale sand now to go back to the handle of the gun, just to think about where has the paint rubbed off. So where does the gun sit on his clothes, and where would those wear parts be, worn parts be? I should say. Oh God, you know what I mean. Right, enough of those big old glasses getting in the way and weathering, because we must be done with it. Let's move on. Let's put a little bit of scratching in just before we go, and let's start painting a shirt. So it's confession time. I have got to confess, I did not show me painting his tie. It is just a black though, a plain black tie. That's a lie as well. I added a grey in it. Oh. So it was a black and grey tie. Only a small amount of grey. Moving on to the inside of his jacket. When this red first went on, I thought, I'm not sure. But it turned out really good. It needs a couple of coats. I brushed it on because I just thought, masking. Didn't really want to do that. So I brushed it on and it turned out okay actually. I'm actually here using a gloss and I'm setting it. The gloss will set the paint that I've put down. And it's so that if I make a mistake with the fine detail that I'm going to do now, I can easily wipe it off. So like I'm doing his buttons and his chain and things like that. So it'll just be a lot easier to wipe off with some clean water. When I say set, I mean protect, not set. I loved using this gold. It's got something in it that reflects, but it's so gold, it's lovely. So I really enjoyed doing his chain and his tie pin. So his outer coat, I'm trying to paint black, but also still show the zenithal through it, because I don't want it pure black, because I want the fur on his collar, I want that the blackest black. So to achieve that, I've got to make everything else that is black. I need to make those different blacks, which I did by using this particular colour black very thinly over the zenithal, And here I'm using the game colour black, which you'll see in a minute how different, even though they're very similar, how different they are. So moving on to skin tones, and I favour the Fairy Flesh set, and I pray that they never decide to discontinue it, because I'll be absolutely gutted. So we're starting off on quite a reddish pink, and then we're going to do the old 3-trick yellow, red, blue wash, and you can see I'm putting them on quite thickly, but I'm taking off where it's pooling. Now then, I think that Cillian Murphy has a bit of a yellow tone to his skin, so I did a yellow wash twice. So I go yellow, red, no I don't, I go yellow, blue, red, and then I end on a yellow. So with a wash, as you can see, I'm dabbing off using the blue paper, which I found out you shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be doing, because it's fibrous. Who knew that? But you learn something new every day. So I do use a dryer to dry off each wash, which I'll show you that shortly. You've probably seen it already. But yeah, I'm going to be using a sponge from now on, I think. And then I'm going on now to the skin tones itself. I deliberated for ages, where do I start? And I talked myself into this, literally, where here? Shall I start here? Yes, I'll start here. So I just committed and went for it. These are the colours I've used for his skin tones, and this is the order that they are in the wet palette. So starting from left to right, you'll see them in the wet palette. And I'm watering them down. I'm using these with a lot of water, so they become glazes. And it's pushing the paint round and colour. It's almost like colouring in. Obviously I've speeded this up and you can see that action of back and two. But it's just about getting the paint on and don't let it dry until you're happy with it. And that's what you can see me doing now. I'm going to stop talking now so you can watch this in peace for a little bit. So I might have another little confession. I have forgotten to video me painting his eyes. So yeah, there is a clip of me here. I've penciled in his pupils, so I know where his eyes are looking. But then, and you can see the paint here. So the paint colour is steel grey, and its number, so you can follow along, is 72102 from the Game Colour range. We're coming to the end of the model now, and as you can see, I've just layered up his hair and tipped the end of his cigarette using ash colours, so grey, red, yellow, orange. And then I've reapplied this black on his collar and his gold chain because we've matted the model apart from his shoes. And here he is.